is something called Wine. Um, and that will let you run Windows programs inside of Linux, but without going through VMware. So it's not actually a virtual machine. It's pretty much running sort of natively. And it uses some neat tricks to do that. But I'm going to go ahead and say sudo and apt-get install and Wine. And I'll go out and find it, and I'm going to go ahead and say yes. And we'll apt-get, we'll allow that to download. So it's got to grab a 113 megabytes. And that makes things a bit easier to see for you. And everything seems to be going nicely. And it's just grabbing some of the basic fonts and things that it would need to emulate a Windows environment. And it'll put a dot in front of it. In the Linux, if you put a dot in front of a folder, it hides it, makes it hidden. But in front of dot, we'll go inside of that in a minute when it's done installing in .1, and you'll see that it actually creates pretty much a mock Windows directory file structure, like a C drive or a C partition. Okay, so now it's installed, and if you'll notice, it's here on the menu and it's set up, and I even have a notepad. So here's Notepad. It's going to run or emulate the Wine environment there. I'd much rather use gedit, but if you need it for installing and configuring Windows software, it's there. And I can select Browse to C drive, and this opens up sort of my mock C drive. But again, if I were to go there, by default you wouldn't see that Wine folder, but you can go here. You can either do a long listing from the command prompt, or I can go here and I can check this option, Show Hidden Files. And notice I'll go down here, and then here are all of my hidden folders, and there's Wine with a dot in front of it, and here's my C drive, and there's actually just like you would see on a Windows machine, there's a Program Files drive, Users, and Windows. If it were Vista or if it were Windows 7 versus XP. So it does a nice job of emulating that. And again, if you were to see how that looks from the command prompt, here's a normal listing, but if I do ls-l for a long listing, you'd see that. And then if I use the A option, that will show hidden files. Now you can see all of the hidden folders inside of my home directory, and there's Wine. And to get there, I just say cd space.wine, and I'll do a long listing. And again, here's this is my actual Windows drive here. So if I go to drive C, it's set up in a mock fashion, just as a C drive would be set up in. So yes, you have VMware, which is awesome. It's free. You can implement virtualization that way. But the problem with VMware is there's a huge performance overhead because you're going through a host operating system. So when you try to do something like play a DirectX game or something that's graphically and CPU intensive, VMware is not your best choice for that. Now running server services, that's fine. Wine, on the other hand, is a nice alternative for something like games. And actually, I don't want to exit. Let me just recurse out here a few directories and go to downloads. And we'll test this out with HalfLife 2. Okay, and with Wine configured and installed, let's test out a package. And we'll do a game. I've got a copy of HalfLife 2. And I'm just going to remove this. This was a RAR file, but since we're talking about software installation, might as well use some more options with the apt-get command. But I needed to install. I just went out and Googled. I was looking for a free unrar utility, and I found unrar. And there's also unrar free. Okay, it's not installed, and Make sure that I get rid of that one too. Yeah, we used the remove command and unrar free. And I found 2 of them, just to show you that, I mean, it's so easy to find packages out there. So, and to install them, I just used apt-get install unrar, and that's sort of the third-party version. And again, if I use it, I'll just bring up the switch options. But notice copyright Alexander Rachel. But then there's also a free one. I mean, they're both free, but that's just giving credit to the developer. And unrar free. And depending on the multiverse, the universe, free, non-free, whatever the repositories are that you have set up, and that's a good option for another tutorial. We'll do a tutorial on setting up repositories and more on apt-get and everything. But for now, if you wanted to take a peek at those, they're config files in the etc folder. And if I were to bring up Synaptic Package Manager, kind of getting sidetracked here, but I know we're supposed to be looking at wine. But if I were to go over here and then let this sync up for a minute, okay, and then if I were to select repositories, and then here I could actually add new repositories, and these are just some of the ones I've added using wget and dpackage and some of the command line tools. But for Maverick Meerkat, but yeah, I mean, I could add more repositories, and this just adds them to a configuration file. And that's what, when you use apt-get or Synaptic, it uses that file to go out and find software in the multiverse, or free or non-free or whatever you might be using. But anyway, back to wine, because this is about wine and not about that. Maybe we'll talk about that some other time. HalfLife 2 here, and I've unrarred it already. It was a pretty large file. I'm just going to go ahead and open up Nautilus, and just a graphical version here. And let's go to downloads, and let me save a little space here. So I'm going to get rid of my RAR file. And this gives us a file that we can use to test wine out with, okay? And if I want to use wine, I'm just going to right click and select, and notice that now there's an option, snap-in added to my menu. So on the pop-up, open with wine Windows program loader. So I want to use the wine emulator. I'm just going to say yes. Oh, and good, you get to see the problem here. I need to make sure I either chmod it 777, or I need to plus exit, or in this case I can just use the GUI. I don't have to use the command prompt. Either way, just make sure it's executable. Oh. And I don't want to open it with Archive Manager either. Alright, so I'm going to open this with wine. I made it executable. And welcome to HalfLife 2 installation. I'm just going to say next, and it's going to put it into that fake HalfLife, into that fake Windows folder, program files. Remember the one that was created when wine was installed, when we used apt-get. So we're in Linux, and I'm setting up HalfLife. Had to wet my whistle, sorry. Cool weather. It's time to engage in small talk as we watch the progress bar continue. Yeah, cool weather here in Florida. I'm in Daytona, and it's probably the first pretty cool day we've had. What is today, by the way? November the 7th? Oh, okay, yeah. So you folks who live in other parts of the world you probably already been experiencing some cold weather. But for us, it's usually about the time of year we might get our first cold day, and it doesn't last that long, but it's nice to have a change in the seasons. I like hot coffee on a cold day. And I can't really think of anything else to say as we watch the progress bar go. So, how are those football teams where you live? And how was work, school, family, recreational activities? But anyway, wine is just it's a wonderful option to add into your Linux installation, whether you're using Fedora or Ubuntu. As far as emulating Windows software, things I run with this, the Unreal game engine I run, Unreal 2004, HalfLife 1, HalfLife 2, database software. It doesn't run everything that runs in Windows, but it runs a lot of things that run in Windows, typical Windows software. It's a pretty amazing emulator. And it doesn't have the performance overhead that running something through VMware would have. So I mean, you actually can do a 3D game. Something. Um, you know, Now, Linux doesn't really do DirectX; it does OpenGL. But a lot of games out there have OpenGL versions or OpenGL capabilities. Yeah, DirectX is still pretty much a Microsoft-only thing. Ask a Macintosh user. And again, while it's installing just some of the other programs I've set up, I installed Skype. And I need to go through the setup process now. And if you want my Skype ID, burying myself for all the world to see. By the way, I don't even have a phone. I just use Skype, and for like $2.99 a month. I'm not getting paid to say this, by the way, but you can make landline calls or cell phone calls to anybody with a phone anywhere in the United States or Canada for only $2.99. And yes, I'm not getting paid to say that, but much cheaper than having a phone. I just have a broadband connection, and I run Skype on my cell phone. Cell phone is Mamo, by the way, which is also I run Debian, and I have OpenOffice. So I have Debian in an image file that was developed by people in the Mamo community. It runs Mamo, and it also runs Android, so 3 different operating systems. And again, just some of the amazing things you can do, even on a cell phone, if it's open source and open architecture. It's almost like a little mini laptop, and the great thing is whenever I'm around a wireless access point, I make Skype calls and it doesn't cost me anything. And of course, I know you iPhone people, you can do the same thing. You can jailbreak your iPhones and whatnot, but I'm just saying that, basically there are flavors of Linux almost identical to Ubuntu that run on a cell phone. Even Stellarium, like this program here, Stellarium, that let me go find it. Yeah, this program here, Stellarium, the one that is, the astronomy software, runs on my Nokia N900 cell phone. The exact same program, same interface. Optimized for a cell phone, of course, but just to show you some of the hardware here. Skype is Skype. And I'm going to go ahead and little icon up here. Let me go ahead and sign out and I'll quit. While we're waiting for this to install, also in addition, there's another way to so there's apt-get and there's synaptic and there's wget and there's dpackage, the dpkg command line tool. There's so many different ways to install software. As if that weren't enough, here's the Ubuntu Software Center. And maybe I just clicked up here, went up here, went down here, and you can search by category. I found some nice, web page development tools, HTML development tools there. And there's astronomy software, and good grief, if you want games, there are so many games. Look at all these arcade games. Scorched Earth, one of my favorite old DOS type games. Role-playing games, board games, card games. So many, just category after category after category of tremendously useful, powerful, free software. Just there for the download. No expense, no cost, and nothing illegal there. It's all under the GNU GPL, the open source public licensing out there. Okay, so under Wine, I've installed HalfLife 2, and I've configured it to run with Wine, so I'm just going to go ahead and launch the game. There's the Valve logo. And then now, through Wine, it's going to go ahead and bring up HalfLife 2. And loading. Okay. And here's sort of the intro. And there are the fascist guards or whatever that you... so if I select New Game, and here are different saves and things. Let me go here, it'll say Start New Game. Of course, there's the creepy government guy. Surely you played HalfLife 2, right? If not, you must. It's an older game, but still pretty sophisticated by 3D standards.
Rise and shine. Not that I wish to imply you have been sleeping on the job. No one is more deserving of a rest, and all the
And let me go ahead and I won't save there. Okay, so I mean, you can see some of the wine options or applications, and in addition, let me go here and show you. I mean, it's truly amazing the stuff out there for wine. Let me go here and open and browse my C drive. Alright, this is sort of my fake C drive, and if I go to Program Files here and Internet Explorer, and by the way, these are just some of the applications that I have, already installed in Wine. But I'm going to open up Wine's version. Oh, hang on, I have that archive manager set to open that. Let me change the default open with and change that to Wine for my exes. And you can do this, and that way when you click on it automatically, instead of trying to decompress an archive, it'll just run the Wine emulator. Okay, and going to this page, this is sort of their version.